Welcome to the Sober Uprising. My name is Holly Kribu, a former heavy drinker who started a Sober Uprising of her own over 2.5 years ago, and everything in her life has changed. On the Sober Uprising, we tell stories of finding freedom from alcohol on our own terms, making it our best power move. Today's episode is all about trust. Trust. And it comes off of an amazing 3-day experience I had a couple weeks ago. And I'm going to share today some there's so many insights, but kind of my 3 top insights from not only this event I went to, but the previous 2 of the same retreat. But just sharing here, one, how it helps me just as a human, but also how it can help on your soberish journey. Because again, the goal in everything we're talking about is not just to be sober. The goal is to do the things you want in this world. And so often drinking holds us back from that. So that's the goal, right? The goal is not just to be sober. It's to show up for yourself in ways. It's to take care of your body. It's to give yourself the biggest chance to have the life you want. And by me investing in myself the past 3 years at this event, that's kind of helped me along the way, along with my soberish journey. I said those 2 things have expedited my growth, my healing, all the things I want in my life so much. So I want to share a little bit more about this past week, and also how that portrays in my sober life. So Tracy Litt is somebody I've been working with in some capacity off and on for about 2.5 years. She is a phenomenal coach, mentor, consultant. I credit her so much for so much of the growth that I do, so much of the work that I do. So I will put how to get a hold of her in the notes. And this event that I went to, was in West Palm Beach, 3-day retreat, just the absolute best. 5-star resort, accommodations, food, all the things, right? All the great things. And this was my 3rd year going. And it's fascinating to watch the growth from that first year. And I'm just such a different person than I was when I walked in, March of 2022. In that instance, that first year, when I think if I had to give like names to these years, like that first one would have been like really tender. I was going in knowing my dad's passing was imminent. I was processing a lot. I was sharing a lot. I had an amazing experience of just letting go and forgiveness for my father during a breathwork session by Von Piero, who is, side note, graciously going to do a session with all of us during the Soberish experiment. Thrilled about that. But I had this moment of showing my dad compassion and forgiveness after a really tough relationship. And he passed that next day. And so I was surrounded by these amazing women, of who some I knew online. I had never met anybody in person. I didn't have any real deep connections supported in that space. And to be vulnerable and show that love, like that changes you at the core. And then that second year, I was still having a lot of doubt around myself. I remember, wondering, okay, I think I want to do the Sober Uprising and step into this place. Like, I've been doing it. I've been coaching. Like, this is where I put my energy, but what does that look like? Blah, 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 blah. So a lot of doubtful, right? Like a lot of comparison and judgment and of myself, because all judgment is self-judgment, even when we're judging other people, but of judgment of I'm not far along. What am I doing? Like, so-and-so's doing better than me, all that bullshit, right? A lot of doubt. But also a lot of doubt, but also in a good place of like, you're kind of like, all right, I got to make some moves. Like, this is really uncomfortable. I got to figure this out. And so that was really great for me. And then this past year, which I just absolutely loved, was I just think of empowered and growth, right? And knowing that I am ready to do all the things that I want to do. And that feels really good. And so I want to share a little bit more about this actual weekend and what came out of it. And again, how I'm using it just for myself, and also how it can be used on your soberish journey. And the theme was trust fall. And it really tied in well because my word of the year was unwavering. Unwavering trust, belief, discipline, commitment for what I want in this world, right? Like, it just unwavering. Like, you can't like push me off the balance beam. And so it was trust. It was all about trusting ourselves, trusting our timing, trusting that everything works out for our higher good, right? Just this trust. And for me personally, trust my lack of trust comes out in overthinking, obviously doubt, but overthinking and over processing and over strategizing is where I go to, which is kind of a when people are like back in the day, they were like, what's your favorite or what's your best trait? And we're like, oh, we can multitask. And everyone's like, oh, that's not really a thing. It's not really that great. Like overthinking makes you think that you're like doing something important, right? You're like, I just need to make sure this looks good, or I need to make sure I've thought it all through. And then you give yourself just enough time to start create doubt and criticism and all these things. So when I'm not trusting myself, I'm not following through on what I want to do. Or if I am, it's taking a really long time and a lot of energy, right? So I'm not trusting. And I am not trusting the timing. I'm comparing myself to other people, comparing their highlight reel to my real life. And that's not true. Like there are people that are ahead of me in whatever journey, and that's great for them. And there's people that aren't, and that's great for them. Like I am in a race with me. As we talked about trust and how to build that and the disciplines of trust and what that looks like. And, Tracy does such a phenomenal way of talking about how you actually build that in a way that is creating ease. It's not mean, it's not hardcore, but it is creating and knowing that what you want in your life can be yours. And you have to go do it. And there is action and there are things that are challenging 100%, but you know that it's all for your higher good. And that higher good's a big one, right? This higher good, it's so often we believe everything works out for our higher good when things are feeling good, but not when they're feeling like crap, right? So I shared this in our Facebook group about, trusting that everything's my higher good. My flights were good on time. My Uber was quick. The guy put my bag in. The driver's like, I've never seen that. There was no traffic. Like, I was like, oh, everything works out for my higher good. Look at that. And then I get home and our dryer isn't working and our dog may need to get his teeth done and our house still isn't rented out and Katie's dad's not doing well. And I'm like, oh, isn't that interesting? Do I not believe that everything works out for my higher good? And that doesn't mean that we can't get frustrated and we can't be annoyed and we can't do all those things 100%. And we can just trust that it's going to be okay. And so I have the trust that like really set in was we do some breath work with Vaughn, which I talked about. We do a lot of visioning. We do some Kundalini yoga, which is great. All these things to like really get it in and just like a trust. And I just had this like ease of like, I do trust myself. Because here's the thing. Everybody in my life, well, I can't speak for them, but I believe I'm a very trustworthy person. They come to me with confidential issues. When I say I'm going to do something, I do it, like they trust me. Why am I not trusting me? I am trustworthy. So my ideas are trustworthy and they may not work out how I want, but that's okay. That's it. Because all that means is that something else is going to happen. And so it's like, again, I felt that way. And sometimes when you leave an event like that, you're like real fired up and you're like, shit, I hope I can do this. Because I can do it here when I'm surrounded by these amazing women and all these things, but am I going to do it when I'm like in the drudge of home? And I felt like I could. I didn't have this panic like I had, not panic, worry I had before. And so I had my amazing friend Taryn, who I was not randomly, Tracy divinely put us together as roommates and has turned into one of my very favorite people on the planet, had made me this beautiful bracelet. I'm showing it if you're listening, and had charms, and I was wearing it and it got caught on my sweater. And we had just broken boards where I had broken doubt and insecurity and all the bullshit. Just like, I'm done. We're not doing that anymore. Just like I don't drink anymore. Like we're not doing that anymore. Like we're just not. And it got caught on my bracelet and like a charm fell off. I was like, oh my gosh. I like felt so bad. It broke and I picked it up and it was a trust charm. And it was interesting because like old programming, I'm like, oh my God, what does that mean? Do I not have trust? That stuff, right? Forgetting everything works out for my higher good. And Taryn, I love her. She's like, Holly, it's because you don't need the reminder. Like it's in you. You just know. And I was like, whoa. And that felt so true. And again, I am stepping into full trust, knowing that every thought I have, everything I want to do, not every thought I have, I have to question because our thoughts can't be trusted. But everything I want to do, I can do. And how this can go for your sober journey is a trust that you know if you need to make a change. You don't need to seek everybody's opinion. You don't need to Google it. Like, you know, when it's just not working for you anymore, period. Doesn't matter how much you're drinking, when you're drinking, why you're drinking. You just know that it's different, and trust yourself, and trust that the timing is okay, and trust that it's for your higher good. There's no judgment on you. Could have done it earlier. So many times I thought, oh my God, what if I would have gotten soberish earlier? Like, what would have changed for me? But I didn't, because it wasn't, and I didn't see it as an option at that time. So trust yourself. Trust that you know better than anybody else. So honor that trust. Second, we talked a lot about failure. And failure was interesting to me because we all have this fear of, like, what will people think? Or what if this fails? And all that stuff. It stops us from most things. But so we had this moment, we had to envision failure and what it looks like and how we treat it. And it was so clear to me that I was treating failure as just like trash, just like, go away, leave me alone. And fear is over here. I envisioned it as like a black cloud. Fear is over here, like, but I want to help you. Like, I'm trying, like, it's like behind me, right? Because it feels like it's just like, oh my God, leave me alone so I can do the things I want to do. But it is like, but I'm trying to help you and keep you safe, because that's my role, is to keep you breathing, to not do things where you're going to die. Because our body thinks its only job is to keep us breathing, and our heart pumping and our lungs expanding and all those, our brain processing. And so when we want to do things like, and I'm like, and so I had this moment of fear coming up to me, and I'm like, okay, I got it. You're going to come with me and you're going to pop up, and I'm going to say, okay, cool, thanks. Like, I appreciate that. That makes total sense that you feel that way, but it's going to be okay. And we're not going to die. There's no tiger in the room, right? We're okay. So just this piece of failure. And then two things come up to me around failure when I had to define it myself, because I'm really big on defining words, right? Because we got these words passed down to us from hundreds of thousands of years ago that we just use. And all of a sudden you're like, is that what that means to me, to you? So failure to me can mean two things. And this helped me kind of flip, and especially moving forward, right? Failure can mean defined two ways. One, it just means something didn't go how I thought it would. Failure is when something doesn't go how you think it's going to go. Right? Like, we have expectations for a marriage, or not drinking, or launching a program, or having a conversation with a spouse or a parent. We're like, God, that's not how I wanted to go. And then we internalize it and we personalize it. And trust me, I know this because I've done it, and I probably will do it, and it will come up. But it is not a personal failure. It's just when something doesn't go how you think it's going to. Or it's just an unmet expectation. You're expecting that your spouse is going to say XYZ and they don't. That's not a failure of a conversation. You're expecting that you're going to get a raise and you don't. Like, you're not a failure. It's just your expectation was not met. None of it's personal. And when we personalize it, we get stuck. And how this can come up when we're drinking is we make it, as opposed to the action didn't work out, we say we didn't work out, right? I can't drink because I haven't done it before. Maybe that time wasn't right. Like, it's not taking credit for everything that we do, right? This isn't like, it's never my fault. But it is saying, okay, this isn't a personal thing. I am not somebody who can't quit drinking. That opportunity just wasn't my opportunity. And this has shifted a lot even when I thinking about the things I want to be doing this year for Soberish Uprising, is like, here's what I'm expecting. If it doesn't go out, it's not a personal statement on who I am as a person, right? It's just when something doesn't go how I think it should go. And that feels totally different. So I'm like, oh yeah, of course I didn't know it. Like, I didn't think it was going to go that way because I didn't know XYZ would happen. Now I know, now I'll do different. So that failure of treating it is, instead of something I run from, something I acknowledge, something I think through. And I think Elizabeth Gilbert talked about something like this, and it was fear, and how it was like in the back seat. And she's like, you don't get to say anymore. You can come with me, but you don't get to say. So it's very similar to that in my mind. Community. I cannot tell you how important it is to intentionally and consciously invest in communities of like-minded individuals. This doesn't discount the friends you have that you just happen to have from work, or maybe you're friends with kids, or the kids moms from your school or whatever. You're like, oh yeah, we're great friends. Yes. But if there's something you're wanting to do that's a little different, that maybe your friendship circle doesn't have, go find those people. This has been huge for me because a lot of my circle weren't doing the things that I wanted to do. So I felt alone. And to put yourself in a room, not with people maybe that are in the same neighborhood or like these demographics that we like think by, but of like your values are thing, like you're wanting to do things in the world. It's important to you to show up in a certain way, right? I was in this room with, I think it was around 60 women who want to do massive things in the world. And they are doing massive things, either on a small scale or a big scale, but they were working with, kids with dyslexia, and they're working with moms, and they're working with healthcare providers and working on, stopping human trafficking. We're talking about serious stuff here. And they found people that are doing other serious things that can, not serious, important things that they can support. And they can say, hey, this is what I'm struggling with, or this is what I want to do. And there's such power in that. And seeing people like you. Again, we had, there are women in there doing that are like who I want to be. And there are women in there who are just starting out. And I learned so much from them. And I hope I provided the same value. And what's fascinating is every single woman shared some type of doubt, some type of insecurity, some kind of like, I'm not enough. And that normalizes it. You're like, oh my God, if they feel that way and I feel that way, maybe I'm not that person, right? Or to have somebody reflect in a mirror things that you can't see is phenomenal. Find your people, consciously invest in them, make those decisions. Every dollar I have ever spent has come back tenfold when I show up and do that type of work, because you need those people who are going to be there. And it may not be the current people in your social group. And that's a lot of pressure to put on the people in your social group. And so how does this look like for Soberish? This looks like finding other sober friends. This looks like finding sober communities, Soberish communities. This looks like getting the support you need. It's important to find people that are doing the work like you're doing. Again, it is not just the curriculum that we're taught and the things we learn. Yes, those are amazing, but it's being in community with other women and sharing and being vulnerable, and the laughter and the advice and the learnings and the tips and the hugs and the tears, all that are what changed me from 3 years ago. I could go through all the intellectual things I learned, but that change in my body is what has changed everything for me. I was also I did this whole week sober too. Had no drinks. I want to give a shout out for having a mocktail at the event, which was great. I know we look around, a lot more people are drinking mocktails than not. And it was wonderful. Had a virgin pina colada, went and got me a mocktail across the street of the grocery store, and we had room service. It was great. I was still one of the worst singers on karaoke, and I had a great time. And again, it's that community. It's that empowerment. It's that trust. It's that knowing that I belong and knowing that you belong wherever you decide you want to belong. So thank you for letting me share, one, what it does for me as a woman in this world who wants to do big things and as somebody on our sober journey. And February 8th, the Soberish Experiment. If you're sober curious, it's for you. I'm telling you. Maybe you're ending dry January and you're like, oh my gosh, I want more. Maybe you quit dry January. Maybe you're like, I didn't do dry January. I don't really care. This is for you if you're trusting yourself that things can be different and that you want them to be different. It's 12 weeks. We meet weekly. It's going to be part content, part coaching, support in between the sessions. We're going to start dismantling truth, talk about your beliefs, what you've been taught around alcohol, what your new beliefs look like, what it's holding you back from. Start building those healthy habits. For 8 weeks, we're going to be sober, totally sober, and start putting into place. See what it feels like. See what it feels like to have that clarity and that freedom and sleep through the night. And then you get to create your Soberish plan, and you'll have support there as well. So I'll have a link in the show notes to lead you that way. And thank you for tuning in. I'm so excited for this year. And I know that people are finishing up dry January. And if you are, congratulations. If you start and stop, that's okay too. We can do big things, and we're going to do big things this year. So thank you for tuning in. If you loved this episode, please leave me a review, send to a friend. It would mean so much. And remember, everything you want is on the other side of saying no to that drink.